Sheila, you were at the first ever Active Life seminar. What was that, 2015? 2015? Might even been 2014.
That early? I honestly, it's in that window of 2014 to 2016. Mm-hmm. Because I started working with you in Active Life in 2018, May of 2018.
Right.
And I know that the gym that we were in that you came to, we then moved to like the CrossFit gym that a CrossFit affiliate that I was working for at the time had since moved. So yeah, that probably sounds about right.
Yeah.
2015.
The reason I wanted to have this conversation with you today is because you have seen Active Life and me since Jump Street. Like, I mean, you were at the first seminar. My hair was still flat. I had no facial hair. And that seminar was 2 hours long for $20. Mm-hmm. And I remember at the end of the seminar asking everybody, what did you think? Like, was it the right length? Was it the right price? And the consensus was it was the perfect length and it was the perfect price. I was like, that's not good.
Okay, you're right.
So you've seen that all the way into what we are today, a company of 26 full-time people. Mm-hmm. You are the one who works closest with me. Mm-hmm. You're work mom for me. You've been a one-on-one client. You've obviated things we were doing well. You've obviated things that we needed to improve that helped the company get better. You've helped me become a better leader by talking about things I'm communicating well and things I'm communicating poorly. And I wanted to have the conversation with you today about the development in a way that I might be blind to unless somebody asks me the questions.
Okay. I can see that. I guess sometimes when you're in the development, it is hard to step out of the development to see where you started and where you're at and where you still want to go.
Well, one of the things that happens a lot is people will ask me, when did you do this? Or when did you decide to do that? I'm like, I don't know. But you probably do. And the reason I say you probably do is there have been meetings we've had as a team. And then after the meeting, you've told me, or you've said to the team, that's something that I've seen Sean do really well, that he didn't used to do well. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I didn't even realize he didn't used to do that well, and that I'm doing that well now. And I don't remember making a change to that on purpose.
Right.
And so you've helped me to see some of the things that I need to lean into more as a result of being the person looking at all of my blind spots.
Right. Well, what strikes me is, and has since day one that I believe I met you, is your intentionality with wanting to become better. And not like, I just want to do this better, but in terms of an evolution of self. Like, you are still the same Sean I met. And I think this kind of goes to that another conversation we had about like our identity, our roles, our masks, all of that. I don't see you as someone who has a lot of masks, and I see you as someone
Just
who,
a few.
Well, when you look at your Monday newsletter, are you at 100% yet?
No.
So there you go. So you still have a little, maybe you're just wearing like the Batman, like just the eye mask kind of a thing. But even with like your identity is still, there's a sense of self in terms of who you are. And you also know your edges and your limits more than most people that I do happen to know. And with that comes an intentionality of, I want to smooth out my edges. And I want to see what my blind spots are, or have people that around me who will constantly, will give me that little like elbow, like, Sean, you're in a blind spot kind of a situation. Along that has been this idea that you've had, this seed that goes with wanting to help people. And how do you take this little seed that could become this amazing forest. How do you take it from that first seminar that we did to where we are now as a company, which I see more as the beginnings of a forest. And there was that space of time between when we first did the seminar and when I started working for you.
Yep.
So how did you get from that seminar to the point where all of a sudden you need an executive assistant? Like, what was that development?
That's a good question. And I have a question for you that I want you to, I'll ask it after. Just remind me I have a question.
Okay.
I had people around me at the time, in particular for this one was Adi Zakir at the time. Now her name is Adi Kaju. She married Mike. And she would tell me, you're all over the place. Like you're good and you're smart and you're all over the place. And she never said it in those words. She's much more tactful than that. But she was like, it would be good for you to have an assistant. And I remember saying, what am I going to do with an assistant? Have somebody like book my airfare and like get me a hotel? She's like, yeah. I said, well, I don't travel enough to hire someone to schedule my travel. And she goes, if you can see that making your life easier, then you just start to play that out into all the other areas. And I remember in the beginning feeling like that was uber selfish of me. Like, why would I ask somebody to do what feel like the remedial tasks in my life that I hate doing, and then say, this is the box I put you into. You can help me book my airfare and my hotel and organize my call schedule.
When you were having this conversation or conversations with her, did you see yourself as a CEO at the time?
No. No. That was definitely one of the things. But I also just felt like, who would want to do that? Isn't like, I don't want to hire somebody who would work for $15 an hour or like 10 from Malaysia. I want someone who would be excellent. And how do I find somebody who would be excellent at the jobs within my job that I hate? I couldn't imagine somebody else taking pride in doing them well.
And prior to me, the people that you did have around you and working for you, why were they there around you and working for you?
It was a totally different mindset of work. They were doing tasks that I also was doing.
Okay.
So it was, you're writing programs for a client.
Okay. I need more help servicing these clients.
Yes.
You take some, you take some, you take some.
Yes.
You can do it this way. Like, okay.
Yes. And there was no quality control. There was no consistency. We were doing fine. But we were not a company. Right? If I got hit by a car back then, we just screeched to a halt as a company.
Okay.
Now, I'm still not looking to tempt fate and cross the street when a bunch of cars are coming, but we would go on. And I say that to explain that what I came to understand over Adi telling me this over and over and over and over again, that the person who would do this job would not do this job because they necessarily loved doing that job, but because they believed in me and they believed in where we were trying to go. And they were good at the things that I was really bad and disorganized at. And that they would recognize that if they could put order to that, it would free me to do more of the things that they are inspired by. And so I said, okay. And that's when I reached out to you.
So perhaps you're the second man in my life that's made me feel like I'm a total package.
That's it.
After my husband.
Perfect.
And yes, and for all of those reasons, when you asked me to consider the position, even though we didn't really know each other that well, there was just something that really spoke to me about, working with you as a person, working with you on the idea or the concept that you were trying to grow. the notion of this position as a work from home mom, and my interest in like being the best version of me. And if we can extend that out to more and more people, why not? So.
I will share with you the way I thought about you changed a lot when I interviewed Ben Newman. I don't know if you remember that. That was like maybe, I don't know, probably 2019, maybe 2020. But Ben Newman is a mindset coach and a motivational speaker. He'd probably be angry. I called him a motivational speaker, but you follow. And I remember he asked me on the podcast, do you want some feedback on the way you communicate? I said, yeah. And he goes, you called her my assistant. I was like, you don't own her. That is a team member, not my anything. I was like, well, how do I describe the person who does all of the jobs that the proverbial my assistant would do, if not my assistant? And he's like, that's for you to decide.
Ooh.
But when you put the term my in front of people, my team, my staff, my clients, my assistant, it insinuates in your own mind the premise of ownership. And you don't own any of them. And so that's when I was like, oh yeah, I don't. I need to continue to earn this the same way I would with Kim, with every staff member. And that's when I started to really think bigger about what could be.
So what strikes me is, one, the intentionality with which you proceed in life. With, which is something I believe you've always had. You don't do anything unless it's intentional. And if something you do is unintentional, there's usually still an intentionality behind that, if you follow me.
It's a misexecution on the intent is what you're describing. I choose to do the thing.
Right.
The thing didn't happen by accident, but sometimes the thing doesn't happen in the way that I intended the thing to happen.
There's this active growth mindset, if you will, that you employ. And so it's, even when you're not aware of a blind spot or something missing or something that can be done better, you have an openness to being told, being shown, being led to, this can be done this way.
Well, so the question I want to ask you that I was talking about earlier, bringing me back to, is you mentioned that I'm the same person that I was then now. And I like to think of myself as a totally different version of that person now as compared to then. And I'm curious what the commonalities are that you're describing of who I was then and who I am now.
Okay. And I agree with you 100% on that.
Well, can I share with you the why I'm asking this? It's in part for me, and it's in part for people listening who want to make progress themselves, who might believe that when I say I've completely changed, that they need to throw out who they are now and become somebody new. And the reality is that's not what it is. And so I'm curious what's common.
Well, as someone working with you and our team and our company, there's an inherent personal development that there's no way I could avoid. You know, be it by just diffusion or just contact of this team and the way we operate. So I'd say you were a much more evolved version of yourself as opposed to a different person than you were before, because where you are as you sit right now is a culmination of all your past selves. You know, the 7-year-old kid, the 16-year-olds, the 21-year-old, like they're all still there sitting in front of me right now. And you've had the presence to understand that there's always room to do what I'm doing better, to find out what I'm not doing well, to expand as I need to. And so that's what I really think is the the basis behind what I said.
I follow you.
So you are someone who I feel safe around from day one to day now, having witnessed you as being someone who is kind and honest. What might have changed over the years is your ability to work on your kindness.
What do you mean by that?
You speak in a way because you want to not just express yourself for the sake of expressing yourself, but you're hoping that your words land in a way that others can get value in it. What you've worked on is your delivery. You've understood that, you understand now in a much better way that people receive what you have to say differently because of their own perspective, their own experiences, their own biases. So you now take the time to understand your audience and what you want to say to them in a way that either does provoke them. Sometimes you do need a little bit of a kick in the ass, and you say it in the delivery that gives them a little bit of kick in the ass. Sometimes you say it in a way that is open-ended to allow the audience to start their wheels spinning and start thinking for themselves. And sometimes you may hold back initially until you have the person's trust to then be able to say what it is that needs to be said in that moment.
Yeah, where the lesser evolved is just saying it. We're
Fuck it.
We're slinging it. It's you can say that.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I was talking with someone earlier this morning about the idea that the people who've known you the longest and who are the closest to you oftentimes are the ones who take the longest to see and respect the new version because they have 20, 25, 30, 40 years of evidence that you're somebody else, that you're not developed in these ways. And so one of the frustrating things for me in going through some personal development and some evolution was the intentionality that I shifted into and the people around me not giving the space, if you will, or the expectation that it was true. Like I had a flip. Like, oh, I used to say it like this. People weren't hearing it because of this. I'm going to start saying it like this. And then you start doing that. And at first you come across almost like you're confused or fraudulent or in a phase.
Do you have an example?
Yeah. So let's take a political disagreement. Let's say, for example, it's the year 2014, 2015. I might ask the exact same question that I would ask now, sarcastically, as if to insinuate there is no good answer to that. So let's say that you're somebody now who is voting for Trump. I don't care who you're voting for. Let's say you're voting for Trump. Back then, I might have said to you, and it doesn't bother you that he's had several wives, right? Like that's not a problem at all. Now, I might say, it doesn't bother you that he's had several wives? That's not a problem for you at all? And genuinely want to hear the answer because it might provide me some insight as to why maybe that shouldn't bother me either. And we can go the other political aisle also, right? Like back, I might have said, and you're totally cool with the idea that she didn't actually get any votes from people, just got appointed to the new position, right? You're totally cool with that. That doesn't bother you at all. Where now I'd say, you're cool with the idea that she didn't get any votes? What? Why are you okay with that? And I can have that conversation on both sides and genuinely be curious and interested in why you feel the way that you feel about it without an end in mind.
Yeah. So that the curiosity that you now speak from is also another thing that I've seen you evolve in over the years. You're an educated man, person. You have great ideas.
I'm 40. I'm a man. Those who know, and those who don't know what I was just talking about.
Right. But so I think the notion of curiosity in your way of thinking and moving through this world now has evolved. Someone somewhere influenced you, opened your eyes to that maybe being one of your weaknesses or blind spots. So now that when you do speak with someone who may have differing opinions or ideas that you haven't considered, you've lost a little bit of that, brash kind of like, and are more like, no, tell me. Tell me why. Explain to me, show me, help me understand. And I think that not only opens up the space for conversation, but allows you to learn more. Because in learning, you are sharpening your tools, your skills, and will allow you in the next conversation you have with someone else to have that information that you might have gained from that previous experience, as opposed to just kind of blowing someone off or, taking it.
Well, I used to very much see things in a binary. It was a scarcity mindset to start with. It was either we're winning and that person's losing, or that person's winning and we're losing. And that was true for people who didn't even know I existed. It was true for people who did and who felt the same way about us. And it was just true across the board. And so I lived with a lot of animosity to ideas that weren't my own. And I still feel it sometimes. There's still moments that I feel it come up and I'm like, that is a voice that you want to know is still there and that you want to take with a grain of salt. I'll give you an example. I made a post a couple of days ago talking about it. I thought it was a great post when I made it. And when I look at it in hindsight and the way people have responded to it, I could have done a better job. But it was a post where I said, I put a sign up that said something along the lines of, this is what it would look like if there was a conference or a summit that invited fitness professionals and medical professionals to collaborate. And there were medical professionals on one side and fitness professionals on the other side.
Yeah.
My intention of that post was to say they would not collaborate. And people...
It's like a middle school dance back in the day.
Listen, I put my hands right on those hips. Elbows were extended to like, I don't know, what is that?
Right.
15 degrees?
Right, but that like...
Close enough to smell bad breath, not close enough to touch torsos.
Right.
So I started to get responses of people who were saying like, oh, this is so great. This is what this company does. This is what this event does. And my immediate thought was, no, they don't do it well enough because I haven't heard of them or because they're not making the progress that we need to make. I need to host the event. And then my brain was like, hold on a second. You don't know anything about these.
Right.
You don't know who's doing it.
And who out there is saying the same thing about us?
Right. And so it was just it's an interesting example of that old self still is in there.
Right. Because we carry that old self. However, like as you are going through the upward spiral, if you will, of self-development, that is also influencing the upward spiral developments of our company. We're no longer talking about getting out of pain. We're talking about what's causing the pain. So, you are looking at yourself introspectively with people that are influencing you and asking you questions to start asking yourself, like about the scarcity mindset to the point to which you've improved upon it. It's still there. However, now you've got the awareness and the mindset to check in with it and be like, where's that coming from? I
have this, I'm curious before I even say this. I'm curious where you think I still have the most opportunity for improvement. Feel free to be full flush with it. I'm very confident in who I am.
What was in our previous conversation, an absurd confidence, an irrational confidence?
Delusional was the...
Delusional, yes, we can come back to that.
I said that for the record.
Yes,
said
you did.
I have a delusional level of confidence, and I define that as confidence / self-esteem that has no evidence to back up the merits of.
Right. Which, if we can put a pin in, I would like to come back to. That's a great question. And the notion of where you still need maybe a little more light cast upon, or a little more encouragement, or just like, hey, Sean. I think there's sometimes hesitation, which I understand, in letting the people who you have appointed to do the task, to let them to just do the task.
It's so funny you say that.
Is it?
Yeah, no, because I want to go into this. I just had a conversation with somebody else on our team. It's funny you say it because this is a blind spot for me. I just had a conversation with somebody else on our team who was asking what I thought they should do in regards to, should they dive into some of the work that the people who report to them are supposed to be doing but isn't happening the way that they want it to happen yet? Mm-hmm. Or should they stay focused on the thing that is supposed to make other things possible, which is their role? And my answer was, you have to trust your people. You either have the people who can do the thing, or you don't have the people who can do the thing. And if you jump in and try to do the thing, then you're telling the people that you don't trust them to do it. But if you just trust them to do the thing and stay focused on what your role is, you're either going to find out you were right and you have them and they surprise or they delight or they deliver like you thought they would. Eventually, it just takes longer than you wanted. Or you realize you don't have the people you thought you did. And you either need to develop a skill in them or help them find work in a different part of the company or in a different company. And this staff member was very relieved by that. And one of the examples that I gave is I said, what if I stepped in and started to do the job that you're supposed to be doing? Because the progress you're supposed to be making isn't fast enough for my liking. Would that leave you thinking that I believe in you, or would that leave you thinking I don't? And so it's a blind spot for me, because my belief was that I stopped doing that years ago. Or at least slowed years ago and came to a stop sometime in the last 6 months to a year.
Yeah. It's shriveling up.
So what's left of it? What made you say that as the example? And speak freely. Like,
right. No. I think in terms of the lifespan of our company, we're probably in that range of like late teens, early 20s in terms of like human years, where are like prefrontal cortex. Yeah, like all of that. We're pretty sharp. We're pretty good. We sometimes still have like moments, you know. And I think there is still that like older version that's like, I don't know. You should probably say something. You should probably tell them, as opposed to just being like, I chose this person because I truly did believe they know what's best. And we do have that value of like, make mistakes, just learn from them. And I think as we are developing as a country, this
is that whole like we seeded this stuff, and now we're talking about politics on the podcast because you and I talked about politics before the podcast.
Just like, to what point do you give them enough to kind of maybe screw up at a cost that's not insurmountable to the company or themselves or their part of the team of our team?
So there are examples I could cite of people making mistakes that I watched them from like the first move it was almost like watching my kid play a sport, and I'm like,
Perfect example, because it really is.
I'm the parent who says nothing while they're doing the thing. Certainly never yells at anybody, and waits until it's over to teach. Like I teach lessons before and I teach lessons after, and I let them experience during. And there was, I'll give you an example that's specific for people. My daughter likes to play softball. She loves softball. And there was one game, like we worked on 2 cues. Wait for good pitches, watch the bat hit the ball. That's it. If you wait for good pitches and you watch the bat hit the ball, you're going to be great. And I watched her go out. We started that after the game before. I watched her go out and swing at every pitch that came. And I told my dad's there, and he's like, oh, she's got this, like close her stance, all these things. He's not talking to her. He's talking to me. I said, Dad, she's not getting a hit today. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, she's not getting a hit today. She's not focused at all. She's just swinging at anything. And I watched her not get a hit the whole day. And then after the game, she was like, oh, I didn't get any hits. I said, you didn't. Why do you think you didn't get any hits? It's like, I don't know. Like, well, it looked to me like you weren't focused because you got 4 hits last week.
Okay.
And what was different last week was you waited for good pitches. You swung at everything today. And so then before every game now, wait for good pitches, watch the bat hit the ball. That's all we talk about. She's 9.
Right.
She doesn't need anything else. And she's making really good progress. I've seen people in our company swing at every pitch in their first at bat and know they're not getting a hit today.
Right.
And I've let them not get any hits come to me and then be like, well, you swung at everything.
Right.
So it's interesting. I'm not going to ask you for specific examples because I don't need people in the company to have themselves talked about without being here. But I'd be curious later to learn from you examples where I'm still yelling from the sidelines, if you will.
You know, I'd push back a little bit on the yelling from the sidelines. And maybe it's because I see it grouped along with you're also what we've kind of dubbed as like the face of the company. And so there are some kids in our family that still want like dad right there with them by their side. So that's also like along with that, you know, navigating, knowing when to speak up and to offer or to ask the questions to the people on our team to get them closer to what we want or need them to be doing is also that notion of like pushing the kid that's still kind of hanging at your side and being like, you got this.
Right.
And I know you feel that way about these team members. I sometimes think maybe you need to just be a little bit more like hard ass about it.
So let me share some conflict I have around that with you because I'm starting to stir up examples in my own head as you describe it. And I'm like, damn, she's right. Something I've resisted a lot is doing anything outside of active life, personally, monetarily, work-wise, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
For the purposes of A, I love it. And B, I've asked our team to have a mindset of balance is only found, doing world-class work. So world-class when you're here and world-class when you're at home or nothing. When I look at entrepreneurs who I enjoy being influenced by, most of them have their hands in several things. And they're known for the big thing that they had their hand in first and they still have their hand in. And examples of this would be, and when I share this, it doesn't mean I share all of their values.
Of course.
Right? Richard Branson. Right? He's not all in Virgin. Like he's in Virgin, but I don't think he's making day-to-day decisions. Right. He's making big decisions. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs being the least, he was kind of all in Apple all the time. But all of these people have things that occupy most of their time that are actually not the company that they are most well known for being the founder of. And I battle on a regular basis of the timeliness that they started to do other things.
Okay.
Because we're not Apple, Tesla, Amazon. I think that's clear.
Yeah.
And the question is, do we become them faster if I'm operating in other circles? Because if I am, let's pretend, there is a company out there who is like an Apple, who I could be influential in, that when they become Apple is influenced by active life. And now we're on their platform.
Right.
They're talking about me and us. My credibility goes up. My authority in the marketplace goes up. People come to active life as a result. I question that all the time. And my thought process behind it is, if I do that, what I'm effectively doing is saying, I trust you guys. You have it. I'm going to put some emphasis over here. And the other side of that is, what am I teaching and modeling if I'm putting emphasis over here?
Well, I'm curious with these CEOs that you referenced. Have they always, are they more like diversely invested beyond just whatever one company or several companies they run?
For sure.
And have they always been that way, or did they get to a point where they were then able to say, look, I know this division is going in the direction at the speed, like everything, we got the people, all of it. And so now let's also see what else we can do off of this. And for us, I still see us as, again, that more childlike company in terms of just like, or
Our
I don't want to say
development.
childlike, but
I know
like
what
in
you
terms
mean.
of like, stages of development.
We just kind of started to figure out who we really are.
Yeah,
And now we're showing up in the world and saying, this is who we are.
exactly.
And we're navigating it. And we're having some success. And there's things that we're like, we could have done that better.
Yeah, and we're still looking at who is on the team in terms of is this the best position for them? Would they be better here? What are their skill sets? Where is their energy best used? Are they the right person for us? And so like this idea of starting to look at other things or consider other alliances or divisions or working partners, it seems like a good thing to start thinking about. I would be like, I don't know. Let's still keep focusing on getting us going in the direction we want, at the speed we want, knowing we're going to arrive at our destination.
So I want to clear some things up just to make sure that I understood you properly. For people who are listening, when you describe us as a young adolescent teenage company, that is in relativity to, or in relation to where we are going to go as a company. It's not indicating that we're an immature, childlike company that you
100%. Thank you for clarifying.
I want to be clear about that
yes,
for them.
Absolutely.
And the next thing is when you talk about, we're still evaluating people, seats, right, company, all that. That's ongoing. That's always.
Of course.
And that is for the benefit of the people who are in those seats. Because if we have somebody in a seat that they aren't great at, they're not going to be happy in that seat. They know they're not performing like everybody else is. And we move people around all the time for the sake of keeping great people on the bus and just seating them somewhere else.
Right.
Okay. I have to figure out what I would do if I was to operate in, I know what I would do, but it feels like there's not I would be focusing on really long-term stuff. Mm-hmm. So if I was to stay within and not operate like this other thing, not consult on this other thing, not take these other opportunities, what I feel like I would need to do is almost be like, hey, I have one meeting day a week to meet with the people who need to have important meetings with me. And my schedule's off limits otherwise. Mm-hmm. Because I need to focus on really dialing in. Who are we going to partner with? Mm-hmm. Where are we going? And there might be 6 months of no return on the work that I do. Mm-hmm. A year even. And everyone else is going to continue to do the stuff that they are doing that is getting us return.
Right.
Is that what you're describing?
Yeah, to some degree. And I think we are, in a sense, doing that now, because I'm also thinking about what your schedule looked like back in 2018 or 2020.
We're closer. Oh, forget it.
You were doing a lot of the selling. Mm-hmm. You were doing a lot of mentoring on the side, outside of the company. Mm-hmm. Your hand was in everything, and your schedule was willy-nilly outside of the weekly recurring meetings, mm-hmm. any given day, whatever, as long as it was between the hours of 10 and 5.
Right.
Now we're much more intentional to allow you to have the space to be creative in big blocks so that you still have a hand in keeping the plates spinning, and you're also looking beyond the plates that are spinning to see what our next moves are going to be, mm-hmm. and bringing those ideas back to the leadership team and seeing is there anything that can be nurtured now? What needs to be put on hold? What would actually completely suck the air out of our sails right now if we were to go with this?
Well, because we both know I'm working on a really monumental task right now that I don't want to talk about publicly, mm-hmm. because we sneak it in.
Okay, inappropriate, not inappropriate, but I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about edging, and they were talking about edging in this regard.
I don't know what edging means.
You know what edging means?
Listen, okay. Maybe I'm not old enough.
Well, no, I think you are.
Not young enough?
Edging is like when you are in a position with someone and you are working towards a climax, and then you kind of withhold a little bit, like bring it back from the edge.
Got it.
And then we move a little bit closer to the edge. And it's like constantly just keeping that until all of a sudden, you deliver.
I got you. Okay. I've never heard that called edging before.
Yes. So in the podcast that I was listening to, they were talking about it in terms of we're about to drop something, mm-hmm. but we're not there yet. I'm just going to keep you right there. So you are, in a sense. I mean,
what I'm working on right now. What I would describe as will go down as the hardest thing I've ever done. Mm-hmm. And I have no attachment to it, but I would also like it to be the most important thing I've done in terms of influence and impact. Mm-hmm. So what I'm asking you is, that feels like the kind of thing that when it's full go, like when we have all the green lights that we've been waiting to have, it feels like I should just be in a cabin in Maine by myself. You know what I mean? Like mm-hmm. for months. And if someone needs me, the house better be burning down.
Right. And we are, in a sense, doing that. Well, hear me out. Right now, where I sit, and I do have it's a privilege to be able to sit in the leadership meetings, mm-hmm. and have that opportunity, as well as our team meetings and some other meetings.
Well, it's an earned privilege for clarity.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. So in order to get you in that cabin mm-hmm. in the woods for months to be able to fill in the blank. You need to make sure that the team is secure, pretty much in alignment, doing everything that needs to be done the way we are expecting it, and being able to pivot, adjust as needed without being like, Sean, you know? I think in the last year, the ability to let you go away for a week without having to, you know, be... Now, I don't know who's texting you behind the scenes or, you know, like trying to get your attention while you're away. But like we, again, developmentally are getting to the point where you will eventually, could, if you wanted to, take off for 6 months, go to another country, or start working on products or maybe even additional companies that work with or for active life.
Right. Well, that's kind of where that's where my brain is.
Yeah.
In a sense that
like, look, we were saying this is your professional this is your personal development from over these years. It's also now along parallel this company's development, much in the way that you are developing.
So I have a question for you about that then. Like, I don't have aspirations to take 6 months off. I would have to be doing something else or I would go crazy.
Of course.
But here's something I struggle with. And I've talked to Nick about this, and I've talked to Mary about this, and I talked to Ken about this, but I haven't talked to anybody else about it. Because of the ambition that I have personally, and because of the tolerance to risk and conflict that I have personally, I endure things that other people never have to know about, never have to deal with, never have to feel. And as a result of doing those things, I get opportunities that other people never experience. I'm in a little bit of conflict with, and I think as soon as I overcome this, there's a lot on the other side. I'm in a little bit of conflict with like being all of me, knowing that not everybody on our team or who are our clients have that ambition or that ability. They have different ambition and they have different ability, but it's not always one of those, if I can do it, anybody can. There are some things not everybody can do because they don't want all the things that come with it. I was thinking about this morning. I have some friends who have lives that I in some ways envy. And when I thought about what did they have to do to get there, I'm like, I do want the life they have now, but I don't want the life they had that afforded it to them. Can I get there without that? I think the answer is yes. But I think that if people on the inside or even on the near outside truly saw and felt all the things that I go through on a regular basis, and I'm not playing a small violin, I just mean the things I get to experience.
Right.
They would say the same thing about me that I said about those friends of mine.
I think we could all put it into perspective by recognizing that the things, and this is me just supposing, the things that you envy in particular about these lives and how they're led or whatever, it's your version of these things your friends have or do. It's not necessarily per se what it is they do or have. You would want your version of that.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a tangible example. Okay. I like nice things. I think part of the reason that we haven't grown the way that I believe we can and should is because I have this block about me getting the house I really want, driving the car I really want, and other people in the company not seeing commensurate progress in their pay, their freedom, their life, and then having everybody be like, oh, it's always been all about him. the whole time. We've always been doing this thinking it was for this big mission, and it's really all about Sean.
Right.
When the reality is it is about the mission, and I want to enjoy it.
Right. But to that point, the car the proverbial car you want to drive, house you want to live in, blah, 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 vacation you want to take, that could be someone else's. Like, I would love to have a remote cabin in the woods. Mm-hmm. I would love to be able to travel to every national park, So I think I would be careful in terms of qualifying your desires and what you're maybe working towards achieving as like part of your win, and thinking that the rest of us are like...
Well, it's strictly a money thing. Like that's my biggest...
It's a freedom thing.
It's a money thing. Like, yes, but it's like the reason I didn't recently buy the house that we would want is because I don't have $3.5 million to buy that house. If I did have $3.5 million to buy that house, how did I get it? I would have gotten it through Active Life.
Okay.
And if I got it through Active Life and there's somebody in the company who have wanted to give a raise to for years and haven't, I would feel like I didn't do the right thing by them and I put myself ahead of them.
Well, I think you just answered the question right there.
Be able to give them the raise first and then...
They would have gone hand in hand. I don't think it would have been a first then. You wouldn't necessarily sacrifice so that a team member could. The way I look at it is collectively we are working towards us all being able to, if that is the focus of gains, of,
Yes, and the reality is there isn't a world in which every employee in a company makes $1 million.
No.
And that's something I battle with, right? The idea of nobody is mailing it in here. Everybody is working hard. Mm-hmm. And so I need to figure out how to get over this whole, like, I do plan to make millions of dollars annually. Mm-hmm. And there will be people in the company who are working really hard who are not making anywhere near that.
Well, this brings to mind for me another aspect of your development that I have witnessed is the walking into a room with people. You used to walk into a room with certain people that you knew you wanted to meet. Mm-hmm. Now when we talked about this, you walk into a room, it's not about, I need to meet XYZ. It's, look at the food that I'm bringing in to feed all of you. And you know what? Take some of it home with you. Let others try it. Mm-hmm. This, whatever it is, chocolate chip cookies or your pulled pork or, so
Skirt
it's...
steak. I mean, strip steak.
Okay.
It's going to be strip steak.
Whatever the animal protein of the day is going to be. Like, so initially, that you want to have a life where you and your family are living in a house in a neighborhood and you're driving the car and you're going on the vacation or the trip or eating the food that you want to eat. And you've also recognized that we now have a team, we have a company, we're making differences. So it's not about like the house, the car, all of that is going to come with the success of our team and what we are doing for people.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, and there's two hangups for me. One is I pay myself enough to live the lifestyle that I want to live now. I'm not in any way, shape, or form complaining about my lifestyle. My wife doesn't work. I walk to the office, so I don't really need a fancy car. We just renovated our whole house. It's beautiful. The only problem is we only have 4 bedrooms, so 2 of our kids share a room. We don't have a place for a guest. And there's no pool and there's no water view. But we're living well. No complaints. I wouldn't step into a bigger life without affording our team the opportunity to also step into a bigger life at the same time. That's true. That's a hard stop for me. The other side of it is part of the reason that I want to be able to have more, just more of everything is because I want to be able to give other people experiences that they couldn't otherwise have themselves without them having to worry about it. Like I imagine going on vacations that are insane that I would way rather have friends and family with to do, where the friends and family would never do it for themselves, couldn't afford to do it for themselves. I'm like, hey, I'll bring you. Don't even think about paying for something. It's done. So this is the mental battle I fight with every day. Getting there. Like being okay with getting to there.
Yeah. Well, I think you're beating yourself up.
I know I am.
Needlessly.
Oh, well, that part.
Okay. Yeah, because I think maybe you're so in it that you don't see that is essentially what you are doing. Because, like, remove taking everyone on vacation to the jobs that you are providing to a team of people that want to live a life, without compromise, and the people that they are in circles with, they are doing that for their circles. This basically level of influence. So through this influence, you are starting to amass your riches, if you will, that will then be able to afford you to be able to continue to do for others so that they can do for others so that, it hopefully becomes viral.
And that's the ambition.
Right. And to that point, that's also been something like in terms of your legacy that has also evolved. You were very much like, I want this, I want this, I want this.
What were the this? Do you remember?
Well, it's part of that. Like, I want this, the house on this street. I want, like the concrete material things.
There's one house.
At least.
There's one house in this town that I would leave my house for.
Right. And I think all of us on the team would be like, please, like if it came available and the stars were aligned, we'd all be like, Sean, just go do it.
It's been available. I actually like
the stars are not aligned though.
Correct. Someone else purchased it, and Kim said to me, she's like, oh, and it's interesting because we both truly believe we're going to have it because when someone else buys it, it's like, oh. And I said to her, I was like, I bet they're going to flip it. Because it's like the reason we haven't even really taken it seriously is it needs $1 million worth of work. And so I'm like, let's just hold on to that. And when they flip it, we'll be the ones who buy it.
There are things that are meant for us that are not with us right now because we're not ready for it yet. So like stay the course kind of a thing. What was the point I was trying to make before?
I don't know.
I can't remember now. But like to that point of...
You were saying that people would say, go get it. When if the stars align and it's available, go get it.
Well, that was, about your, like the development from your legacy. Along with that, like wanting to have, I'm doing this because I also want to make a difference for people.
Totally.
I've been able to, I live a great life and I'm still improving my life. I want people who don't even realize they, have the great life to know that they can work towards it. And that's also shifted to a degree. It seems like it's less self-serving, less about like having a statue erected in your honor and more about the relationships. Like like that being your legacy, your influence on people. And that's also along with that notion of it's not so much like scarcity, it's more generosity. It's more making sure not that I have enough and my family has enough, but everyone who's connected with me has more than enough so that they it's.
Well, it's funny you say that because somebody recently asked me, how do you know when you're done that you were successful? And I said, I had to think about it. I thought about it for like 2 days. And I said, I think the best answer I can give is that long after I'm gone, people in my family will meet people all over the place who will tell them how I helped someone in their family.
You/Active Life.
Yeah. Us. That created the opportunity for the two of them to meet that day. And like, if I can do that we're successful.
That's the humanity aspect of it, I believe. Like, that's where you're not just brash Sean who's, I got a great idea. It's, I'm considerate, thoughtful Sean with an idea that could be revolutionary. Like, imagine people realizing they don't need to rely on a pill or a scheme or, whatever the easy, quick way, just give it to me. All is going to be right in the world. It's that like notion of he helped me, or the company helped me realize I could help myself. And with that, I am now helping others figure out how to help themselves.
That's it.
Yes. And then we look at that, what was it again? Irrational confidence?
Delusional confidence. You said you wanted to come back to it. So here we are.
I did. The delusional confidence. Because I think a lot of people look at you, look at even people on the team and be like, well, of course you can say that. Of course you can do that. Look at you. Like, almost assuming that all of us have like this privileged magical unicorn that brought us to this point, or we were born into it. And well, some of us on the team may have more levels of getting a leg up. You pull back the curtains, we all have battle scars. And we're all pretty damn confident. So turning it to you, because, you are working or mentoring people that are like, Sean, I can barely keep the plates spinning that I have. And I know there are other plates I want to spin. And like, how do I do this? How do I see this vision or whatever? And like, for someone that doesn't have the delusional confidence, how do they start? How do they get even a little seed of confidence to then get to the point where they can help themselves start to develop?
Well, let me start by giving an example of what I would call delusional confidence, even if it's the wrong phraseology. When I was a kid, I was going to be a pro baseball player. That was it. Like, what if that doesn't work out? What do you mean if that doesn't work out? I'm playing pro baseball. Spoiler alert. I didn't play pro baseball. If you ask me today, could you have? I still tell you probably. And I have no reason to believe that. But I look back and I realize I didn't work for it. And so I shouldn't have gotten it. But if I did work at it, I could have. That's where my brain still is.
We'll never know.
But
that seems likely, more likely.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like, I'm a 5'10", 165-pound now decent athlete. Like, what are you talking about? You were going to play pro baseball. And I truly believe now still that if I put in the necessary work and made the necessary sacrifices, I'd have been there. That's crazy. And I get that it's crazy. And that's how I feel about the things in my future now. And I'm like, there's no reason that Elon Musk wouldn't call me to ask a question. Why? Of course he would. Why wouldn't he? And so how does somebody start that? I think the only way to start that is to pick a certain, like a version of an end that's important to you. And to just make no compromises on what that end looks like. To fail and to be like, yeah, but we're still going towards that end.
Fail forward, as I've heard.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've heard a lot of that recently. But what I'm like, this is freedom without compromise. It's saying I will not compromise on the mission, the vision, and the values of my life. If you start there, you have 100% confidence that that's how you're going to live. Mm-hmm. It's not a tangible end. Like it's not I'm going to be a millionaire living in a house with a beautiful wife and kids. It's not that. It's I will have lived a life of X, Y, mm-hmm. Z within these values mm-hmm. with 100% certainty. If you can keep that promise to yourself, I think that you start to develop the confidence we're talking about.
So it sounds more like you have typically had clarity in your vision throughout your life.
No. No, that's why I'm trying to think of how somebody else would get it. My clarity was, I'm great.
Well, I just mean in terms of like someone who's like, okay, how do I get out of this hole?
Right.
How do I develop myself to be able to take the first step
right.
in everything?
And for me, it was always pain. Mm-hmm. Right. Like I had this, this paradox I was constantly dealing with, which is, I think I'm great. Why aren't great things happening?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Where's the evidence that I'm great? I've told anybody who would listen from the time I was like 5 years old that I'm going to be something. Right? So when I wasn't, like when do I become something? Mm. And even now at 40, there are plenty of people who would say, dude, I would kill to have your life. And I'm like, well, I feel like I haven't done anything yet. So when I talk about, I really feel like I am so underperforming to my own potential. And I think it's because I've had years of development that needed to happen. I only got clarity fairly recently. And now it's like, go.
Got it.
But I feel that every day. And I think that for somebody who I'm trying to think of how do they start to manufacture that, it's be dogged and relentless about living within values mm-hmm. towards something that's really important to you.
So it's that kind of confidence.
It's having
the clarity of what it is that you want, mm-hmm. knowing who you are and what you believe in and what you value. Mm-hmm. That then gives you the confidence to say, okay, today, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, this is who I'm going to be. Mm-hmm. Because you can keep that promise every day, regardless of how other people affect you.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what the weather is. It doesn't matter if your kids get sick. It doesn't matter if you get sick. It doesn't matter if the whole business tanks. It doesn't matter if the stock market tanks. It doesn't matter if your car gets repossessed. It doesn't matter if your car breaks down. You can be the person you said you were every single day.
Yes.
That builds confidence. And I think I've done that. Mm-hmm. I think I've always done that. I think I've always believed I was meant for something great. Mm-hmm. And so even when I wasn't getting great, I just believed it wasn't my time yet. And now that I'm 40 years old, I feel like we're doing something great, but it's not the pimple on the elephant's ass of the great that I expect of us. Mm. And so I now have this like, how old was that guy when they did that? How old was the founder of that company when they broke through? I play that game with myself now. And so I have this insane sense of urgency mm-hmm. that I often feel like other people don't have, and that I need to throttle myself back to protect them from me while I deal with that.
That's a whole other stone that we can turn over, the Sean throwing the grenade.
Yes.
Now is not the time.
It's not the time. I was just checking my schedule to make sure I'm not running into another meeting, and I'm not.
Yeah.
Of all the people you would know. But yeah, so I think the confidence starts from being who you say you are.
Yeah. And that's, again, looking at active life and what we do. I'm sure to a lot of people on the outside looking in, they think they know what we are. They think they know what we do. You know, we're helping people get out of pain. We're helping coaches and personal trainers do what they do, affecting others' lives in a positive way without it just being a hobby or a second or a third job. Like we are taking people through what many of us on the team have gone through, are still going through, and are looking to continue doing. And that's basically, how do we know who we are and what we want with such clarity and certainty that the confidence to live our life the way we choose to live it without compromise, all of that.
And by the way, that includes uncertainty. Like I was sharing with someone earlier today, if you ask 3 different people, what color is the sky? One might tell you blue. One might tell you today it's gray. And the painter might pull out his Pantone chart.
Right.
We can never be certain that we're right, but we can be certain that we're aligned. And we can recognize, ooh, I thought I was aligned. I'm not. Let me own that and realign. And as long as we're certain that we can be the person who can constantly do that. I was sharing with someone earlier today, the same person with the sky. The most freeing thing I've ever done for myself was remove the desire to be right and seek all of the areas where I'm actually wrong. And the reason why that was the most freeing thing is when I learned that I was wrong about something, I was like, whoa, this isn't the best that life can get. Even if it was like the smallest little incremental gain, if you have to be correct about everything, when something bad happens or when you're wrong, life gets worse.
Yeah. Well, it's a burden.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Always have to be right. Like,
Yes. And when you can live in a world where I'm looking for the areas where I'm wrong, like actively looking for areas where I'm wrong or less correct. When I find them, life gets better.
Yeah.
It's
a rush.
It's the most free, like I'm getting the chills talking about it. That's the most freeing thing I've ever done for myself.
Yeah. I just also got that same like, woo, yeah, like please help me find the ways I'm wrong.
By the way, and don't tell me I'm wrong. Ask me questions that linger in my head that force me to decide I might have been wrong about that.
Yeah, well, I think that's a newer notion of doing that perhaps the majority of society is clueless on. And that's, why the small group of people that we are currently working with that are like, oh my God, like you've transformed my life. It's because we've helped them perhaps get over that little like roadblock of, no, I don't want to be told I'm wrong. And because of the way we work with them, it's not by just being like, dude, you're wrong. It's showing them, it's asking the questions, it's helping them realize they're wrong without telling them they're wrong.
And I can share another little voice in my head on that one. There are people who we work with who have seen radical improvement in their lives. Radical. Like I'm talking about 2, 3, 4x their income. Relationships they've never had before that they now have that they've always wanted. And all of it started when they enrolled with us. And when you talk to them, like, oh yeah, what do you think changed? I don't know. And I want to be like, well, I think I do. But at the same time, I have to give them credit that like maybe it was all building.
Right.
Then they enrolled with us, and that was like the first big win for them of these wins that were inevitably going to come anyway. But so that's another like...
Yeah, well, that takes me back to my first phone call with you.
Well, I don't know what that one was.
My knee was in such pain that I was at the point where I wanted to just amputate my leg.
That would have been a bad move.
Right. And at this point, you were no longer seeing it. I called to see if I could set up an appointment with you in your brick and mortar, and you're like, I no longer have that.
Right.
Well, what are you doing? This is what I'm doing. And I kind of like balked at what you suggested was going to be the course of action in terms of cost and, how it would be like remote. And you would ask me like, well, what have you been doing to this point? Has any of that worked? And it's like, yeah, you're right. When I think of the number of dollars that I've spent in the last year trying to fix this, the number of, stretches I've tried to do and things that I've tried to do and taking time off and like starting again slowly, like none of that has been working. That's essentially like spinning your wheels or, throwing money at something. And until I realized it's like, well, if nothing I've been doing before has been working, why am I continuing to look for something that's very similar to what I have been doing, which would have been going to see a provider in an office that would have written me a script for something or whatever. And so I was forced to think differently about the situation to then get myself the help that I needed to. And in doing so, got myself out of pain and, kind of haven't looked backwards in that regard since then. It's always now like, I need to be more curious when I look at things. I need to be more curious about the things I'm telling myself. I need to be more curious about the things I think I believe in and the things that I'm speaking to. And then when I'm listening to people talk to me now, I need to be more curious about what the message is that they're saying and why they're saying that and what are the beliefs that they have. So it's... Again, you're not just developing yourself. You're not just developing your company, our company. You almost can't not get caught up in the tornado that is Sean Pastuch / Active Life, because we're all kind of like going, woo, isn't this fun? After a big storm comes a big cleanup, and I think a lot of us are now in a position to be able to clean up our own yards and clean up our neighbors' yards and show them how they can effectively do that for others. So
I like it. I think we can end it there.
Let's do that.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Sean.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Active Life Podcast. Please remember, give us a hand, rate it, review it wherever you listen to shows. We are on a mission to humanize the healthcare industry by professionalizing the fitness industry to empower the individual to live a life unlimited by the way that their body looks, feels, or performs. If you are inspired by that mission and want to jump on the wagon, find us anywhere. Active Life Professional on Instagram, Active Life RX on Instagram. Come to me personally at Dr. Sean Pastuch. We want to welcome you onto the train. We want you to be a part of the mission. We want to offer you the opportunity to pursue this right alongside us. We're inspired by your effort, and we hope to help you in your journey. Turn pro.